Just verifying that we are indeed live on Facebook. Normally comes up with a... Okay, Brian, we are now live. So all you Sunderland supporters at home, just going to give you an introduction. Obviously, you'll have seen Brian playing in the two games that we screened this week. The FA Cup third round game against Port Vale, and the game of today was the 6-2 drubbing of Millwall in the 91-92 season. Anyway, without further ado, to my, trying to think where I am now, to my right, so you've got BrianAtkinson here. His football career actually started with Sunderland. He'd make his debut for the Black Cats at the age of 18 in a 2-1 home win against Plymouth Argyle at Roker Park in April 1989. The following season, Brian would make a further 18 appearances and played his part in helping Sunderland gain promotion to the top flight. The then First Division proved too much for the lads, and they returned back to England's second tier, but all was not lost for Atkinson. His performances had caught the eye of former Sunderland manager Laurie McMenemy, and as a result, he would make his England under-21 debut, coming on as a substitute for Mark Blake in a friendly against Wales in December of 1990 at Prenton Park. In the summer of 91, Atkinson would be handed further caps representing an under-21s team that would win the Toulon tournament, beating Senegal, Mexico, CIS, and hosts France 1-0 in the final. In the 1991-92 season, Atkinson would make play his biggest part yet in a Sunderland shirt. Plucked from the reserves by Malcolm Crosby, he would make no fewer than 39 appearances, many of which were standout performances. So much so that many saw him as the ideal replacement for an aging Paul Bracewell. That season, Brian would finally open his goal-scoring account for the club. This would be an equaliser in a 1-1 draw against Blackburn Rovers, but it was in the FA Cup where Atkinson would shine. He was somewhat of an unsung hero, with Burn making all the headlines, but it was Atkinson who would score our very first goal in the FA Cup that season, which would start our path to the final. Not only did he score against Port Vale in the third round, he'd also score what would be the winning goal against Oxford in the fourth. You could argue that the two assists he made were even more important. That memorable corner from the most memorable of headers from Armstrong against Chelsea in the quarter-final, and for Burn, who fired past Norwich City's Mark Walton at Hillsborough, taking Sunderland to the final. Atkinson would remain at the club for 4 more seasons. He would eventually depart for Darlington after helping Sunderland back to the top flight in 95-96. Brian made a total of 169 appearances for the Black Cats. Retiring from football in 2002, he would accrue almost 400 league and cup appearances in a 13-year career. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Brian Atkinson.
How about
that from an intro?
Brilliant, thanks, mate.
I was up all night doing that. All right, so Brian, what are you up to these days?
I work with a lad who used to play for Sunderland, Martin Gray, in his football academy. So I work with that day to day. In my spare time, I help out with Northern League team, West Auckland. So I'm still involved with football.
West Auckland, that's there was a famous movie made about that, if I recall. It was called The World Cup, A Captain's Tale.
Yeah, we still talk. Sorry.
No, go on, mate.
Yeah, there's still talk about it now in West Auckland. It's quite famous, West Auckland, for that. Like you said, there's been a play made about it, a TV, a film. So it is a big thing.
Well, so if those haven't watched it, just jump online. It's called The World Cup, A Captain's Tale. It's got Dennis Waterman out of, what was he in? Minder fame, and then obviously Tim Healy from Arvidas in Pets and that as well, if I remember. So anyway, segue there, but talking about your footballing career. When you first started playing, where did you draw your inspiration from?
Well, probably like most lads used to play on the green outside on the front with all the older lads. Play for the school team. Back in our day, there wasn't many football teams you could play for. It was either school team or you didn't get a game. There wasn't not many boys clubs. Ended up playing for the school team, played for the district, played for the county, and then basically snapped up for Sunderland, really, as a 14-year-old.
Yeah, was there a player then that you admired when you were younger, that you would try to emulate them when you were first starting out?
Well, I think at my time, I wasn't not a supporter of any team, but what I used to see on the telly was Kenny Dalglish. He was a player that I would like to have been like. and he was not inspiration, but who I would have loved to have been like, definitely.
No, that's fair enough. Like, so I mentioned there in the intro that you'd make your debut for Sunderland at 18 in the league match against Plymouth Argyle at Roker Park. Do you have any memories of that day?
Yeah, I do. My memory's not the best anyway, but I can remember. Obviously, I can remember that. It was a night match,
Uh-huh.
and I always thought Roker Park was great on a night. But it was. I don't think we were doing so well at the time. It wasn't a great, massive crowd. I know there was a few injuries at the time, so I got my chance. But at the time, I was living in the club's hostel, so I was only 18 still. So we'd come in on the morning, and I was told I was playing on the morning. So basically, did a few corners and set pieces and that, and then went back down to the hostel. And I remember being a really, really long day, dragging, just waiting for it to happen. And as you know, at Roker Park, it always used to be windy, and I thought, oh, the wind's getting up. And I remember that it kicked off 2 minutes in. I got the ball, played a 1-2, and I scored. But Marco was offside, so that dream debut that you dream about, scoring a goal on your debut, didn't happen.
He probably did it on purpose, Brian.
Nah, I was his apprentice at the time as well.
Oh, you were?
I was his apprentice, yeah. So
yeah,
he wouldn't have done it on purpose.
So I know you mentioned actually some of the lads we've had on here, and I know remember going back to the Roker Park days. You're right, the night matches were just something else. Yeah. And we've talked about, some of the other players have talked about the atmosphere there. I will tell you, because obviously I always do my research before I interview players. There was only 8,000 people in the stadium that day. You said there was a low crowd. There's only 8,000 there, and that was obviously a pretty low crowd in general for us. And I know that obviously Plymouth, they wouldn't have had many travelling away fans anyway, not for a midweek game because it's quite a hike in the best of times. So, but yeah, absolutely fantastic, especially on night matches with especially if the sea fret comes in and the floodlights and it's unbelievable, man. Absolutely superb. Certainly missed. So it will be a couple of seasons before you get your first goal. You mentioned there about scoring on your debut, but Marco was offside. But your first team goal was the equaliser against Blackburn Rovers. How did you feel when you scored that first goal for the club? And can you talk us through it? What actually happened?
Yeah, well, I didn't score many goals through the reserves, through the youth team. I didn't really score many goals. So when I did score, I was in shock. I was in shock. Didn't know what to do, how to celebrate. But I remember it. I just gambled. The ball got played into the box, and it's dropped down, and I'm on the move. And it's just dropped down. I've hit it first time, and it's gone in the bottom corner. And then you think, what do I do?
We should have took a leaf out of Dickie Ord's book. Do you not remember his celebration? I think that was against Plymouth as well, where he ran the full length of the field, giving the old windmill.
Yeah.
A lot to learn from these lads. So basically, actually, you scored a total of 6 goals for the club. Looking through your stats, what was your favourite goal you scored and why?
Well, there's a memorable one. There's a memorable one, but at the time we were getting absolutely hammered. I think it was Bristol City at home, and it was. I think Andy Cole actually signed. He was playing on loan from Arsenal, I think he was, and he tore us apart. He had, and the ball come to me I would say about 35 yards out, and I just thought I'm hitting it, and as I hit it, it's gone, hit off the bar and gone in, and I just walked away as if I did it every day. How do you celebrate when you're getting beat 3-0?
Aye, I was thinking the final score was 3-1 in that game, I think. But I was at the game as well. I think if I remember, Bristol, where they had like a purple shirt on and green shorts or something. It was probably one of the worst away strips I'd ever seen, I think, at the time. So I've got a question here from Ian in Columbus, Ohio, and he wants to know if you ever took a ride in Hardyman's Yugo.
Probably no. I didn't. I don't think I did. I think at the time I went in somebody's FSO. If you can remember them.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
there was a couple of lads like them.
I had some shite cars back then, mine. I mean, I know. I couldn't believe that one day when I came out and passed the ticket office and I saw Hardyman getting out of a Yugo and had his name on the side.
I think everybody had a car, but you were right. There were some shite ones.
They were terrible.
I was lucky. I got VW Golf when they first come out, a new shape, and it was. I wasn't comfortable having my name on the side because I used to drive. I lived at Aycliffe, Newton Aycliffe,
All right, yeah.
and I was driving up and down, and the last thing I wanted to do was to get people to be looking at us. I'm just not that type of lad. But I had my name on the side, but it was a nice car. It was.
There's a couple of lads who actually live over in the States who are from Aycliffe. We're going to talk about offline, like they're over in Houston. But so I say for me, like I talked to you offline as well, you'll always be remembered for your part in the infamous 1992 FA Cup run. So as was shown earlier this week, you scored the opening goal in the FA Cup game against Port Vale. It was a 3-0 win. And the performance actually saw you have actually a good run of games in the side after that. So we talked about Crosby bringing you in from the reserves when he took over from Dennis Smith. What are your favourite memories from the FA Cup run?
Well, going back to the Port Vale game, Malcolm Crosby come in. I think he'd been working in the Middle East. Obviously, known Dennis Smith from York, and he come in the start of that season, and he come in as a youth team manager. And at the time, we had a really good youth team. We had Kieran Brady, David Rush, lots of lads who did push on and play for Sunderland. So he probably was pushing me a little bit to try and get into the team. And when he got the caretaker job, he put me straight in the team. He put me straight in the team in the Port Vale game, and he was playing me out of position a little bit. I was playing wide right, and that's not where I was. Well, I didn't class my best position. It was centre midfield. But he gives a game, and I luckily scored. And to be fair, from him being a caretaker manager, he just gave me so much confidence and said, right, go on, do what you've been doing for me all season. And to be honest, that season was probably, like you said, the most memorable season as a Sunderland player, really.
What about any other games? Obviously, you scored in the Oxford game as well, and obviously had two sublime contributions to quarter-final and semi-final games as well. So, how do you, any stories from those games?
Yeah, obviously the Oxford game. Like I said, I didn't really score a lot of goals. Another time where I've gambled, John Burns' shot hit off the post, come back to me, just bounced for me nice, and just basically just had to fire it into not an empty net, but how do you miss from 6 yards out? Easy one, really. So that was that game, and then going to the quarterfinals with Chelsea.
Yeah,
I remember when we played them down at Stamford Bridge. I didn't play too well, and I got brought off. And then luckily kept me place for the replay. And I thought we did really well. Even though Chelsea had the chances, Tony Norman was unbelievable on that night.
He was sublime. He was superb.
Yeah, he was. He was unreal. He didn't get enough credit, to be fair. And you see it now, 30 years on. You see Gordon scoring the header, but there was more. There was a real team effort that night, because we got to the point where Chelsea scored late on, and it looked like it was going to go to extra time.
Yeah,
certainly looked like it was going to go to extra time. But predominantly, it was always Paul Hardiman took the corners from the right hand side, and I took them from the left hand side. So they were always in swingers. But not everybody knows this. I mean, it was a little bit of talk. Maybe a couple of weeks before the game, we'll try some out swingers. And the last couple of minutes, when the ball had got played into David Rush, we were awarded the corner. It was like I happened to be on the left hand side of the pitch, and it was an absolute trek to get over to the right hand side to take the corner. And I remember saying to Gordon, "I'm ghost here," and I was only a young lad at the time, and he shouted at us because we've been practicing this corner, and he said, "Get it took." So there's me, goes and takes it, and I was absolutely goosed. So I've drummed all my strength up, and I've tried to hit as hard as I can in the area what we've been talking about, and it just happened to come off. It does just happen to come off. So then Gordon's ran up to me, knocked me over. And as he's knocked me over, everybody's piled on top. But in the meantime, I'm getting cramp in my left leg, my hamstring and my calf, and I'm getting cramp at the same time in my right leg. So if you do see the pictures of this,
Hold
I'm
on.
on the bottom.
Here's one I prepared earlier. Just I might have it here.
Let me tell you what.
All right.
If you see me on the bottom, I've got both of my feet are pointing to the sky because I've got cramp. I'm telling everybody to get off. But obviously, the crowd's going mental. They probably can't hear what I'm saying.
I'll show you. Hopefully, I can get this to work here.
Cannot but say that they've earned it.
Here's the build-up. Out from Burn to
Rushy
here, we just falling over, and it looks like, was that Jason Cundy who put it out? I can't remember.
Yeah,
or was it Elliot? No, Cundy, yeah.
Sinclair.
Here it is.
So if you see the corners here at Roker Park, the road was a nightmare because there was a step. You always had to get up that step.
Look at that. That was sublime, that, like, unbelievable.
The noise
Malcolm was quite happy.
It's unreal.
Look at that. Unbelievable. I don't know if the sound will pipe through at home, like, but I think I mentioned to you in a couple of times.
So well.
We talked about when I've been talking to some of the other lads as well. The three loudest events I've ever heard was the Manchester United game where Benno scored the winner right at the end. This game, which was unbelievable, and I mentioned before, it's the first and last time I ever got on the pitch. I was one of those lads that actually ran on the field. And the other time was a home game against. It was a playoff game against Sheffield United, which was just unbelievable. Now I've knocked this up now. Just trying to see how I get it off. I'll just turn this off, Brian, 1 second here. Screen. Mess this up.
Well, it still gives you goosebumps now watching it.
Man, even watching it, yeah, it's just unbelievable. Like, here we go. That's better. All right. But yeah, I mean, so basically, you've scored. You play cross the ball across to Armstrong. He's powered it in, and he's come over, and you've got cramp. Superb, man, superb. So what about the Norwich game afterwards? And so obviously that was massive, and then obviously it saw us through. Talk us through, because I remember again being at Hillsborough that day as well, and I thought the cop was shaking, bouncing with the noise, and so what was it like on the field in front of the thousands of passionate Sunderland supporters?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, wherever you went with Sunderland, there was the supporters are top class. And I've spoke to you offline before. You could go anywhere in the world. I remember going to Norway pre-season, and in the middle of nowhere, and then a group of Sunderland fans turn up to anywhere. So on a special day like a FA Cup semi-final, they were unbelievable. They were unbelievable. And to be fair, I'm being wrong here a little bit, because you miss out as a player. You do miss out as a player, because what happens, and it happened with the cup final, you obviously stay local to the where you're playing at in a hotel the night before, and you can imagine. Well, I've done it. I've been to Wembley since with Sunderland to watch, and you get that atmosphere travelling down on the train, going in the pubs. You don't see any of that as a player.
Yeah.
You're locked away. You're sat in a hotel, and there's a lot of waiting around. You're a lot of waiting around, and you just want to get on and play the game. To be honest,
I was going to say it'll probably make you even more nervous seeing what the lads are like. I mean, because I've been at the cup finals or the playoff finals this past year, just seeing what Trafalgar Square, when there's again tens of thousands of Sunderland supporters there with the flares, and everybody's just having a fantastic time. I think it would have put even more pressure on you to perform, I think.
Well,
but you're right, it's something else.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. To be fair, I used to room with Paul Bracewell as makes his cup of tea and whatever he needed. I used to do for him, but he'd keep us quite calm, because he'd been there, seen it, and he'd like to tell you that he'd been there, seen it, done it as well.
Well, I do have a question for you about that. Actually, coming up shortly here. What I was going to do also, though, I just talked about the Norwich City game. I'm going to try and put up your brilliant cross on that as well. Here it comes here. Hopefully, everybody can see this at home as well. I'll try and do it as I did before. There we go. All right. you'll see the ball comes out, and I think it's John Byrne who controls it initially.
This is 1-against-1 for a moment.
Again, just really good build-up play. Rushy's involved again, and then you just do that kind of overlap thing where outside of his foot, just ding it in. He cannot miss.
He couldn't miss, no. He couldn't miss.
Look at that. Again, that just the whole. Every time I interview someone, I'm getting all excited. Every time I interview somebody, it just brings back some fantastic memories like that, Brian. I mean, it was just superb that day. God only knows what it felt like when that full-time whistle went, knowing that you're going to the cup final.
Yeah, great. I remember the chairman at the time, Bob Murray, coming in and talking, and I'd probably only ever said about 3 or 4 words to him in my time at Sunderland, and he's come in and how happy he was.
Yeah.
How happy he was. It was great. It was great.
That's superb. Is there anything from the final? Any memories that stick out from the final at all? Because I know some people I've talked to, it's been a blur. Other people have actually soaked up everything and they remember the smell and all that kind of stuff as well. It's so any memories for you specifically?
I think the excitement beforehand, really, the day itself was a bit of a letdown because it's not a nice place to go, Wembley, if you don't win. And as a Sunderland fan, you know better than most.
Yeah, we do.
I played there 3 times and never won, so it was not a nice place to go, to be fair. It was nice to see all your family in the crowd and stuff like that, and it is an achievement. And you look now, we're still talking about it now. How long ago?
Yeah.
30 years?
Yeah, 33. Yeah.
You just don't realise that. You don't realise that at the time how big it was.
Yeah.
How big it was, and how you would have been written in folklore if you come away that day and won the trophy.
Do you remember what it was like when he actually got back to the Northeast after the final?
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable it was. Because I remember, obviously, after the game, everybody's disappointed, and there was a banquet at the hotel because we stayed down in London. And then everybody had a few drinks, probably had an argument with the missus or something like that, whatever it was. And then the next day, everybody's hungover, back on the bus. And I remember getting back to Durham. We come off at the Durham turn off at Carville.
Right.
And we had to get onto the open top bus, and everybody's saying, "What we doing this?" And then as we started to get through Horton, you'd get a sprinkling of people on the side of the road. Then as you were coming, well, it probably started before that, East and West Rayton, just people on the side of the road. Then as you were getting through Horton Cut, closer to Sunderland, it was getting busier and busier. And then by the time you got Doxford Park and places like that, it was rammed. And that was all the way through the town to the Seaburn Centre. I think it took us 4 hours to get there. It was unreal.
Well, I've got one question here from Derek McLaughlin, who actually lives down in Florida. He says, which of Brian's 3 Wembley appearances was the most disappointing from a team perspective?
I think the Swindon one, I was only a young lad. I watched that a couple of weeks ago, to be fair. I was just happy to be on the bench and be involved. And ultimately it turned out all right because we got promoted anyway. A story about that. I remember in the summer, the disappointment of getting beat at Wembley, and then I think it was a few weeks later, I was out playing football with my mates on the field. Shouldn't have probably been doing that, but I was. Then somebody come and said, "Oh, Sunderland have been promoted." Never. Before you had a mobile phone, so you'd probably seen it on the TV or out like that, but you didn't have social media, you didn't have a mobile phone. So I went in, found out, and happy days, we got promoted. So I was disappointed for the Swindon game, but I was more happy to be around the team then because I was only just gone, probably 18, 19. The cup final, it was a massive achievement to get there. And then when you talk about the aftermath and you coming back to Sunderland, how many supporters, disappointing that we didn't win. That's all. Regret that you didn't win. The next time I played, it was for Darlington, and it was we'd been doing really well all season, and probably should have got promoted. And probably when we played Peterborough on a Friday night, and on form and on over the season, we probably were the better team than them. So that was a disappointment because we should have been promoted that year, and we didn't.
No, that's fair enough. So during the 8 seasons with the club, you've experienced obvious highs and lows: promotion to the top flight twice, a relegation, FA Cup final. You lined up alongside some quality players, many who would consider legends at the club to this day. These include, but are not limited to, Gary Bennett, Eric Gates, Gabby Deaney, Bracewell, Davenport, Kieran Brady, Kevin Ball, Don Goodman, John Byrne, Martin Smith, Darius Kabitsky, etc. Who do you believe was the best Sunderland player you played alongside, and why?
Well, I think it's a difficult one to say that because I could say good things about them all. I could say good things about them all. Tony Norman, lovely guy, great goalkeeper. John Kay, Darius, great at the job. Full backs, lovely lads. And I could go through that. Gary Bennett, still speak to Benno now. I was his apprentice. I was Benno's apprentice. I was Marco's apprentice. So I've grown up with all of them. John Byrne at the time was great, even though he was coming to the end probably, but his experience and that, it was really good. And you look at our cup final team, we had a sprinkling of really, really experienced players with a lot of youth. But what we did have, we had a togetherness, and everybody worked the bollocks off. Wanted to work for each other. You need a bit of luck and you need a bit of things going for you. But if you work hard for each other, you got a chance. I
think that's one of the things that we're missing. This, and I don't want to talk about the current state of the club, but that's certainly one of the things that we're missing right now in the team, is that ability to have that unification and work as a team collectively. And you mentioned before that there was just, and again, talking to the other lads as well, there was just this passion and this want and need to go out in there and play for each other. Tony Norman specifically cited yourself and Rushy as well, being an integral part of this, especially 91-92 season, where you started to come into your own, both of you guys. So, and we just saw goals. Obviously, Rushy bagged the winner down at Upton Park. So, and Rush played you through for Burns' goal. So there was a lot of, like you mentioned, youth with experienced players. You had Davenport in there as well, Bennett, and so we were pretty solid right up through the middle of the team. I think Norman, Bennett,
Rogan.
Rogan,
Celtic.
Good Lord,
They had a lot of experience. Peter Davenport played Man United, and to be fair, at the time when I was playing with Dav, I probably didn't know enough what he'd done previously. Playing for Brian Clough, playing for Ferguson. Lots of experience. John Byrne playing for QPR. Then you had Gordon Armstrong, great quality. You had a Paul Hardiman, competitor. John Kay played for Arsenal, Wimbledon. So even though we were in the second division, we had quite a sprinkling of experienced lads, and Paul Bracewell, England international. Kevin Ball.
Well, but Bawley wasn't playing in that Millwall game because ironically he'd been sent off the week before because he used to like a red card or two, did Kevin, as you know. So that actually takes on to another question. So who was your favourite midfield partner? You mentioned that you started off on the wing, but obviously, I mean, from my standpoint, your best performances came at the centre of midfield. So who was your favourite partner in that position?
Well, probably the one I learnt the most off was Paul Bracewell.
We did get a question through from actually for a guy called Philip Wilson in Stirling, and he was asking what was it like to play alongside Bracewell. And funnily enough, he also mentioned, was he a calming influence? I know you mentioned about the FA Cup final there. Was he a calming influence, and what kind of things was he able to teach you on the field?
Just about on the field, just about where to be. He had a nice knack of being in the right position at the right time, and probably when he played for Sunderland, that when I was playing, he'd had a bad injury. I remember him because he used to room with him. He used to be on tablets all the time. He used to be on tablets all the time, morning, night, to try and just like take the inflammation away from his ankle. So calming influence, yeah, it's just how I was away from everything. I was with most of the time when you're in a hotel, you're in your room or you're down for not even a team meeting really. Your evening meal and waiting around really in hotels. So yeah, he was just how it was.
Yeah.
Just get on with it, be calm, and then wait for the game.
Yeah. No, he was again. He was always a person that you could rely on to put his foot on the ball and kind of slow the game down if he needed to, and that kind of thing. And like I mentioned at the start, there, many of us thought that you played alongside him, you were going to basically replace him eventually, because that was you were certainly building up to that level as well. So that was always interesting to watch the two of you play together for sure.
I don't think you can beat experience.
Yeah.
Listen, you see lots of lads come into teams and do well, but you cannot beat being there, seeing it, and done it. You just can't, because you've been there. You know how to deal with stuff, and ultimately people learn from mistakes. The clever ones do. If you do that wrong, the next time you try not to.
Yeah, for sure. So that takes us to something else, really. I know that you've lined up alongside many other notable players. Who do you think's the best overall player that you've played alongside, and why?
Alongside, well, I played 6 times for England under 21s, and like the lads who spoke about with Sunderland, all of them brought something to my game and helped me out. What you're talking about, who I played with, not so many games, but I remember, and it probably won't go down too well with the Sunderland fans, but Alan Shearer was in the under 21s with me at the time, and this was before he had any of his injuries. When he was he started off at Southampton, and he'd just gone to Blackburn when he could run, so he could do everything. He could hold it up, he could run, he could bully people, but ultimately he could score goals. I remember watching him in a finishing session with England. At Sunderland, you'd be in the finishing session and half the balls would go over the top of the crossbar, or the keepers would save them. There they were getting banged in left, right, and centre. So he was probably one of the notable players that I played with. Steve McManaman, he was another one.
Yeah.
He was a year younger or so, but you could see that he could go past people for fun. He could do it, and it proven. Played for Real Madrid. So they were 2 people that were.
And you ended up facing against McManaman in the cup final.
Yeah, well, he went rounders, didn't he, and passed it to Michael Thomas, who smashed.
I wasn't going to say now, Brian, but now that you brought it up, like
it sounds like that's where you were going.
Class. I was going to ask you, was there any notable players on that England under 21 team, but I think you've just blown us away with the fact that you mentioned Shearer. And so what was it like? So I mentioned before that obviously you were selected. I think you played for was it Ray Harford in Toulon? What was it like out there in the Toulon tournament? Because obviously, I mean, we hadn't had the best. We had I'm going to say it was a season of experience in the top flight that year. Because obviously, I know. Oh, sorry, man. All right.
Just let the dog out. Right.
Now we know the answer to who let the dogs out. It was you. Get in there. That's an old one.
It was a bit of a shock to get in the squad, to be fair.
Yeah.
And it was like before mobile phones. I remember getting a phone call at home off at the time Jeff Story.
Okay. Yeah.
Guy who used to write for the Sunderland Echo.
Yeah.
And nobody at the club had told me. And then I just, I think the first squad was the Welsh game.
Yeah.
The Welsh game, and I remember Dickie Ord got in the same squad, so that wasn't too bad because we went together. Obviously, drove down. It was in Chester, and we played against Wales. I can't remember if Dickie played or not. He probably did.
I don't think he did.
Did he not?
No, I don't think he did. No.
I did.
Yeah,
I know I did.
Yeah.
And it was just a friendly. It was a friendly. So, but I remember all of them lads. And when you went the first time in the squad, you're looking. We were in the second division at the time, and you're looking. seeing lads off Match of the Day. You know what I mean? You think, should I really be here? And what it did do, it gave me massive confidence coming back from there, because it made me realise I could be around them sort of people. Probably before I went in, I think, well, do I really deserve to be here? Or do I belong here? And by the time I come back, I knew I was good enough to be around it. And that's one thing I did take from being with the 21s.
That's excellent. So what about the Toulon experience then?
Yeah, the Toulon. Well, Audie was in that squad as well, so we roomed together. So straight away, that made it a little bit easier. But we were away for 10 days, and if you know Audie, to be with him for 10 days in the same room's hard work.
He's a Merton lad, isn't he?
He's a top lad, yeah. He's a top lad. So we were together, and Ray Harford at the time was he was assistant manager to Kenny Dalglish at Blackburn, and basically all we did when we got there was organisation and shape and making sure we knew what we were doing. And luckily, I got in the team. Who was the first game against? I can't remember. Senegal, yeah. I think.
Yeah, Senegal.
Yeah, we beat them. And to be fair, Shearer was the difference, to be fair. Any chance he got, bang, it was in. Senegal.
Mexico.
Who was it? Mexico. Audie was centre-half against Mexico.
Yeah.
And I remember he got bit. One of the Mexicans bit him on the shoulder. So that was funny.
Good Lord. Surprised you didn't knock him out?
Nah.
No?
Mexico, and then USSR. So then we qualified for the final against France, and I think Barthez and Zidane were in that squad.
Unbelievable.
And luckily we beat them 1-0.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience. It was.
You mentioned Zidane in that as well. So my next question is, you made almost 400 career appearances, faced many players. Can you tell us who was the best opposing player that you faced?
Well, Jan Molby, that was a tough one that day in the cup final, because you couldn't get near him. Whether the pitch at Wembley was massive, which it is, but I remember that second half at Wembley. I was just trying to get close to him, and the ball had gone. And he was a big lad, and he was not overweight. He was just, everybody saw he's heavy, but you couldn't get near him. He never really gave the ball away. He never gave the ball away.
He was a big lad. So similar to the best opposing player, and maybe a slightly different answer, was there any players that you didn't like playing against, someone you would dread facing?
Well, I think you can speak to any midfielder back in the day. Anybody who made you run towards your own goal all the time, that was tough. So if the ball went over your head, because basically it was man against man, you were against the other midfielder in their team, and it was who would come out in the best. And if you were against somebody who just didn't want the ball at the feet, just went for the ball that's gone over the top, and you had a responsibility to stay with him all the time. And it was like, off we go again. And that they were the worst type. If somebody played in front of you, you were happy because they weren't really hurting you. But when it went over the top and you had to run back towards your own goal, and you speak to any defender, they're happy if somebody's playing in front of them. When it goes over the top towards their goal, they don't like running backwards.
Was anybody who stood out like that? It was really quick. It would give you a hell of a time.
Not really anybody who stood out, but just in general, people who did that. Like doing that style.
So I know that obviously we talked about Roker Park, and this has been like a common theme in the questions I've been asking people as well. But are you more of a nostalgic kind of football player supporter from the perspective that you prefer the old stadiums, or are you really up for the new ground, or the all singing, all dancing? Basically comparing. Well, similar there would be to compare Roker Park with the Stadium of Light. The very different places. Do you prefer the old stadium? Is there any specific grounds that you went to as a player that you enjoy playing at?
I think I miss Roker Park because it's not there anymore. It'd be lovely to reminisce and go. All you can think about now is in your mind. I'd love to go back and smell the laundry because I got brought up as an apprentice there.
Yeah.
30 years later, I can smell this washing powder, and if I smell that, it takes me back to Roker Park.
Yeah.
And little things like that, Bovril, takes me back to when we used to be ball boys for the reserves when we were only apprentices. The smell of Bovril at Roker Park on a midweek night. Little things like that. Yeah, little things.
I think there's Michael Ganley, the guy, or Ganley, who runs the fans museum in Sunderland. I'd come over when he was first based in the library, and when I walked in, he'd had one of the seats there for, I think it was from the clock stand, and he gets you to take a picture in front. He said to me, "Do you want a cup of Bovril?" I nearly fell over. I'm like, "Absolutely!" And as I said, you smell it, and it just takes you straight back. So I don't think I've ever had Bovril since, to be honest with you. That and those red hot pies, I keep talking about that, like, but it does absolutely take you back. So what are your most favorite grounds that you've played in, and what's the worst places that you've played at?
I remember playing at Anfield on a midweek night. That was really good. I can't remember the game it was. It might have been a Littlewoods Cup or something like that. But that was a special atmosphere on a night. Obviously for reasons when they're singing their song. Obviously Roker Park.
Yeah.
Wembley was always a nice place to play, but it was, for me personally, it was bad memories, disappointment. Always got beat there. Worst grounds. I didn't actually play there, but I don't know whether Dickie Ord told you about the story about when he cut his head open at Plough Lane.
I have heard it, and I think I'd said we'd been to Plough Lane was awful. I mean, as a away fan, that the concrete steps were all cracking, and there was grass growing up through them, and all sorts of stuff. But go on, sorry, it is a great story. Go on.
When I don't know whether it was John Fashioner or it was there was another guy who had Eric Young had a headband round his, and Audie cut his head open, and one of them put the finger in the cut and said, "I like the taste of white man's blood." So that was a scary story. Another place, Millwall.
Yeah.
Not
the
the
old
new
den.
den. The old den.
Yeah.
That was the kind of place. I
Yeah.
remember walking through the tunnel there, and the tunnel was at the back of the goal. And it had chicken wire over the top, and I thought, I'd never seen that before. And as you walked out, they were just rattling on and it was quite an intimidating place to go.
It was as a fan as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stick together.
Absolutely. Yeah, too.
West Ham was a bit like that as well. Round the ground, it's a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
But even Millwall's new ground, that was not the best area, really.
They've done a great job of policing down there. I went there a couple of years back when we drew. I think Oviedo scored, and they've got it down logistically now where they filter the fans in and out. And I think it was any bother. It's normally in the city now. They've got the trains all sorted out and everything. They've done a good job down there for sure. So
they probably have plenty of practice.
Yeah, they have. Again, I didn't expect that. I'd flown over and brought a lad with me from the States, and I'd warned him before. And I says, look, I mean, historically, I'd never been to the new den. I'd only been to the old den. And I'm like, it's not a nice place. You know, we're not going to wear any colours or not like that. And I met up with a few lads from the Bulgarian branch. And then we walked to the stadium. And as I said, getting in there, we were filtered on the train properly. There was proper trains for Sunderland supporters. And it was really done a fantastic job. And I felt safe. It was where historically I hadn't. So, but anyway, let's talk about some other parts of your career. So basically, you've played for the likes of Dennis Smith. Well, I mentioned before, Laurie McMenemy. I know he was the manager of the under-21s at the time. Ray Harford at the Toulon tournament. Crosby, Terry Butcher, Big Buxton, Peter Reid, and Dave Hodgson at Darlington. I'm sure you've had like different relationships with all of them. Who was the best manager you played for while you were at Sunderland, and why?
Well, they all brought something to me. Whether I wasn't in the team, whether I needed that opportunity. So all of them were good for me at some point. I wouldn't say anything bad about any of them really, because in my time there were always whoever the manager was. I always tried my best for him. and I know people have opinions sometimes, or they like you or they don't like you. That's football.
Yeah.
They're only trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you mentioned about not wanting to say bad stuff. I was going to mention about Terry Butcher there. Because obviously, as a fan, remember him obviously in the 1990 World Cup coming in, bandaged head, like singing "Let's All Have a Disco" and stuff. And very, very excited as a supporter when he came and joined the club playing centre half. I remember him. I mentioned this the other week as well. I remember him marking Andy Cole out of the game at St James's Park. He was just obviously Andy Cole was like a whippet, and he just read him so well. And he did. I don't think Cole got past him once. I don't think we played very well as a team that day, but still, what do you think? Where did it all go wrong for Terry as a letting the dog in? Who let the dogs in?
It's trying to get in again.
Where do you think it went wrong for Terry then? Was there something? I mean, did you? Okay, I'll put it a different way then. If you don't want to say how bad about it, if there was, was there an opportunity there for you? Because I know you went into management after 2002. Was there an opportunity there, and what did you learn from that situation with Butcher then? How about that?
Yeah, well, you don't. It doesn't automatically make you a good manager.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a good footballer.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of different skills that you probably need. Whether it was too early, probably he's still trying to play as well. Terry Butcher.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was playing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He brought a guy in called Bobby Ferguson, who's just passed away last year. He was very different to what we'd had before. Very, very old school. Some of our lads couldn't cope with him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think at the time. But it's a difficult one. I don't know what went wrong. We all expected the same.
Mm-hmm.
We all expected him to be. It was exciting times, and it just didn't work out for him.
It was a shame for him, like as I said, because we'd all been built up and expecting things. But there was some other positive things that were spawned out of that as well. Obviously, I mean, after he'd gone, we had a relatively short spell with Buxton, and then Peter Reid came in. What was I know that was your last season there, but what was really like to work with?
Well, when Reedy first come in, I remember him coming in the change room, and we went into the away one at Roker Park because it was bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair to him, he come in, and I can't remember to this day what he said, but I come out and it wasn't quick. I mean, it wasn't a long speech. It must have been 10 seconds, 20 seconds, but it was so inspirational what he said. I come out thinking, wow. And I didn't know Peter Reid. Obviously, I'd seen him on the TV and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he had obviously a relationship with Paul Bracewell.
Yeah.
So at the time, I hadn't been getting in the team. And as soon as he got the job, he put me in the team.
Mm-hmm.
He pulled me aside. He said, "Brace said this about you. I'm putting you straight in the team," which was good.
Yeah, definitely.
And then unfortunately, things didn't work out. I had a couple of injuries, and the year, I think it was a year that it was the following year when they won the championship.
Yeah.
It was a time where nobody got injured. Why change it?
Yeah.
There was only 2 subs, and to be fair, they were just annihilating everybody. And I remember being on the open top bus at the end of the season, like felt like a fraud because never really been an awful lot to do with the first team because you couldn't get in.
I thought you played like 10 games that season, Brian. I think you still you. I think you. No.
I didn't play enough to get a medal. I know that, but
right.
I know from I probably played early doors, but after Christmas when it mattered, you couldn't get back in.
Yeah.
And you felt like a fraud. And the Sunderland fans again, top draw, lining the streets.
Yeah.
Just craving success.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I'm actually just going to have a look because I've got all your stats here. In your final season, you started 8 games and you made 2 substitute appearances in the final season.
I think you must have needed 12 or something like that to get there.
Right.
Something like that. And then ultimately, I remember having a meeting with him and you said, listen, get yourself away and try and get going again.
Yeah.
Which, disappointing at the time, but that's football.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I'm looking at that now. I mean, you talk about Bracewell as someone that you could look up to, and equal measure. And again, you mentioned about Dalglish and Morby. Yeah, I'm going back to the mid '80s now, when obviously Peter Reid played in a very successful Everton team. So when it's the same sort of thing as well. I'm looking at, you were still young enough to have plenty, or him to have plenty influence on you as well, and guide you in the right way. So, is there any other advice that he might have given you, other than, did he ever do any one-on-one training with you or anything like that? You embrace, or
Not really. It was more Bobby Saxton. It was.
Right.
I think he was the top man, Bobby Saxton.
Yeah.
He was the brains. I thought he was.
Well,
I remember playing in games where he could see something straight away
Mhm.
and change it and affect the game, and
Yeah.
and that would have been because he was experienced.
Mhm.
Obviously, he knew what he was talking about, but he could come in at half time and change a game by making changes tactically.
They were a good partnership. I know that obviously you've worked with Martin in a managerial standpoint as well. So I think we've mentioned this before, and again, we're not going to talk about club position or club politics, but I think that we've really been successful as a club when we've had a good number one and number two. You go back to like Smith and Crosby, or Smith and Busby. These kind of partnerships. And then again, obviously, you mentioned Reid and the big lad. So we talked about memorable, open top bus, the parade, and that kind of thing. Memorable moments. Is there anything that you consider to be your worst moment at the club, whether it be like a performance or an experience that you had there?
I wouldn't say though. Obviously, injuries and stuff like that as a footballer, it's tough. But it's just part. Listen, we were privileged to play football as a job. So I wouldn't say anything that's negative. It's just part and parcel.
That's excellent. Oh, good for you. That's good. All right, so you went to Darlington, and then you were joined by several former Sunderland players, including like Priest, Bennett, Gabby Deeney, Mark Prutter was there. I think Kabitsky played there, and obviously Martin Gray, like I just mentioned. And he played 200 plus games for the Quakers, including a playoff final, like we talked about before, against Peter. Was there any? Have you any fond memories playing for Darlington that you want to share?
Yeah, it was nice. I remember Gary Bennett was the manager at time. Then Marco come in. Then we had a chairman that come in and put a bit of money into it, and we had a proper go. We had quite a big Sunderland connection, to be fair, at the time. And that was a season where we should have got promoted, and we ended up getting beat at Wembley. So yeah, fun memories. Disappointment with Darlington. We should have got promoted at that time. But I was lucky. I feel I was lucky.
Yeah. No, it's class as well. So you retired from football, and then you went into management. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer playing, or do you prefer managing?
Well, I know for a fact, when I haven't been involved with football, you miss the camaraderie and you miss the changing room. You do miss that. I like playing, of course I do. I've never been a manager, and I don't know if I want to be a manager. I've always been a number two. And going back to what you're saying, it's an important role. It's a massive role. And I think the game's changed now, or people have changed. You've got to put your arm around people more now, and people don't like to be shouted at. Not everything's like old school like it used to be. Survival of the fittest, or get on with it.
Yeah.
Sports psychologists and all that now, which is a good thing.
So other than playing for Sunderland, which other club would you wanted to play for in your career? If you had, you could pick anybody you wanted to play for. Who you played for?
Just because probably as a kid and Liverpool at the time was successful. Probably them.
Yeah. They had a quality team as well. I mean, they did for a number of years, obviously. So you mentioned Dalglish.
I'll tell you a story, because David Hodgson was a big part, to be fair, when he was at Darlington. Lovely bloke. Good career, good experience, all for the players. And I remember one day we used to train down at Durham, at the racecourse ground near the prison. and it was his big mate was Kenny Dalglish from the time when they were at Liverpool, and he just got the sack at Newcastle, and I think we started training at 10:30. And Hodgie was always late. He was always not late. He was always bang on time. He wouldn't come too early, but he would be ready to start. And there was this soft top Mercedes parked down by where he was, and there was somebody in it, but he didn't know who it was. And as Hodgie pulled up, this guy gets out of the car in his training kit, and it's Kenny Dalglish. And he's got his training kit on, his boots on, and he's joined in a small-sided game with us. And he was the best player. And he must have been. It was unbelievable, his finishing. He did a finishing session for the forwards, and he was just like, he was on another planet. And
he still had it.
Oh, he did, yeah. And it was like such a privilege, do you know what I mean, to be on the same training pitch as him. And to be fair, he was really quiet and shy, he was.
Yeah.
He was quiet and shy. He wouldn't come out, and he obviously didn't know anybody. But that was a good story. David Hodgson was a massive part. Yeah.
That's brilliant. What was the best advice you were ever given as a player?
I think if I try and do it now with younger players, and we've all had it, because as a player, as a young player, you listen to an experienced guy, and you, out of respect, you probably listen, and you nod your head, but do you really listen? Because you think, what's he on about? I've still got another 10, 15 years. But listen to people with a bit of experience, because they've been there and done it. Work hard and enjoy yourself. Because if you work hard, it generally happens for you.
Yeah, reap the benefits. So what do you?
Matters. Everybody matters.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Everybody matters. Whether it's the person who puts the kit out, whether it's the person that sweeps the changing room, just be yourself.
You mentioned that as well. I think about working hard and achieving your accomplishments. I was reading something the other day, and basically it was opening. It was actually an article on yourself about saying basically that you'd worked hard to get to where you got to, and that was one of your like pretty much your ethos was like to push yourself as hard as you possibly could. So my question is, what do you think was your biggest accomplishment in sports? You personally?
Well, I was a kid that played on the green in Newton Aycliffe who wanted to be a footballer, and luckily I did. I had a career out of it. I had a career. I played in some big games, and to be fair, we're still talking about my football career. Probably 15 years after it's finished.
I know.
You can look 18, back and say, you can look back and say, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. But I was happy enough with it.
Yeah, I mean, you did all right, to be fair. As I said, I mean, you think about, us just what do they call them over here? The armchair quarterbacks. People that sit back, or we watch the games on TV or at the stadium, and I can't say I'll never say I'm jealous of anybody, but I was certainly envious of the fact that you got to put on the red and white shirt and play in front of just the fans anyway. Because I think that's one of the biggest advocates that we have over here is the fact of how passionate we are as fans, and it certainly attracts a lot of like neutrals. Like you see, think about some of the American fans. They get to see a lot of the big teams on TV. You see a Big Six, you see a Big Seven now. So you think about, they don't get to see Sunderland very often, but when we show up and then watch the games on the pub and how passionate we are, and again knowledgeable, because we love the club, absolutely love the club, and we have that connection. And then when they realise it's not just about the team, it's about the city, it's everything. I mean, really, it is the heartbeat of the city. But you're absolutely right. And then we see you like yourself, and as I say, well, this is going to sound completely, as I said, kumbaya, but you talked about meeting Dalglish. These talkings I'm doing each week, this is the same as you meeting Dalglish. I mean, I was standing in the full end watching you guys play, and I feel just very lucky to be in this position. So anyway, that's enough of that. No more compliments from me today, Brian. That's it. So, obviously, as I said, lots of games played. Did you hear any? And sometimes this gets a little bit confused what I'm asking. So, did you hear any chants from the stands that specific songs that stuck in your head throughout your career that I thought that's absolutely brilliant? That
Well, there was always when Benno used to get the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when he used to step forward? I don't know what the chant was, but he'd always like the noise would always rise. Then there was Dickie Ord, Cantona one.
Yeah, that was class. That
I remember the Reuben one.
Yeah.
Probably Gabardini one really as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story about that as well. I know I'm supposed to be interviewing you. I came to watch the England B match at Roker Park, and I was standing on the barrier at the back of the full end, and Marcos came on, ole, 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 and we were into what I thought was going to be the third verse, and I ended up being everybody. I was a conspiracy. I was the only person that sang, and I got the old from the entire. I was like, okay, thanks, lads. But no, it was brilliant, brilliant song. And again, the lads are very witty, and I think that's again one of the things that we talk about over here is how quick and how much wit that typically people from the Northeast have. So, question for you.
I think that's a big point about passion and stuff like that. I think it's just Northeast people as well.
Mm-hmm.
All the clubs. One of my former clubs, Darlington, at the minute is obviously over the last how many years, 5-6 years,
Mm-hmm.
the supporters have raised hundreds of £1,000.
Mm-hmm.
This year alone, they've raised £130,000
Wow.
within 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
As they're like it's a fan-run club,
Mm-hmm.
and they keep doing it all the time. And you think, wow, what a group of people to be doing that. And it's just like I think it's such a passionate sport. The passion of the people in the Northeast, wherever you go, whichever team it is, there's a core of people that just they'll do anything for the team.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I'm going to ask you one question. Actually, I can jump into this now. If you could describe Sunderland fans in 3 words, what would they be?
3 words.
That's all you've got. 3. That's all you've got.
Top draw.
There you are. That'll do. Top draw.
Wherever you go, honestly. Like I was saying about the pre-season friendlies, but one of my mates anyway, and I only got to know him through obviously Sunderland, and a lot of probably Sunderland supporters will know him, Jimmy Laidler, who from Warwickton. I remember getting off the bus as a player, 30 years ago, and he was always waiting for the players to get off the bus, and just kept in touch.
Yeah,
and he's never missed I don't think he's missed many games, home and away.
Yeah,
over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Lives in Warwickton, travels wherever, and he's always there. And to the point where, when me and Martin Gray were at Darlington, whenever there was an international break, he used to come to watch Darlington.
Oh, brilliant!
He used to come, top man.
Yeah. So I have to ask you this question because I asked Paul Atkinson this. Have you ever been mixed up with Paul Atkinson?
Well, no. Well, I've been called Paul plenty of times, so probably yes.
Did you hear the story what Paul was telling the other week about Tommy Hauser?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Brilliant. So you might have already mentioned it, but what was your funniest incident as a Sunderland player?
Well, I've got plenty. Probably a lot of them I can't probably say, but you can imagine John Kay used to be a good fun. Yeah. All of them really. Listen, I've got great memories. Not many bad ones really. I could meet up with the lads who you used to play with from back then, and it'd be like getting transported. If you met them now, it'd be like getting transported back into the change room all them years ago.
Who was the character or biggest character in the dressing room then?
Gary Bennett was all the older ones. I remember Eric Gates. He was. Yeah. I remember when I was a young lad. This is a good story. We had I think we got knocked out the FA Cup pretty early, so we were gonna have a trip away, and the trip away was to Blackpool. So it was freezing cold, but I just passed my test, and I live Newton Aycliffe. Eric Gates lived at near Barney Castle, so we were getting over to Blackpool driving. So I was told I was driving. So I can't remember who was in the car, but this was before like mobile phones and stuff like that. And I think it was John McPhail. I don't know whether Gary Bennett might have been in, and Eric Gates. So I was only 17, 18, and I was driving. It must have took, how long does it take to get to Blackpool from the northeast? 2 hours?
2 hours,
It must have took about 4.5 hours, because I had to stop at every either pub or betting shop. Oh, no way. Just, and when we got there, that's all they did, sit in the betting shop for
Yeah.
4 days.
Brilliant.
4 days.
So we've obviously passed the hour that I promised you, but is there anything else that you want to share, Brian?
I just wish that it would all get sorted at Sunderland, and they'd get back to where they belong. And I know probably every Sunderland supporter would say the same. You cannot beat the passion of the people. I work in Sunderland a couple of days a week, and not everybody knows that I used to play for Sunderland. And this is one of the reasons why I ended up signing for Sunderland. I'd been to lots of teams, Man United, Newcastle, Southampton, but I always felt comfortable at Sunderland, and it was a lot to do with the people. And I work there a couple of days a week, and anybody will do anything for you in Sunderland. The people are top draw. Get such a nice feeling when you go there, and I tell that to everybody. So I just wish it would get sorted out at the football club.
Yeah,
you and me both. They deserve success.
I think so too. We have got a fantastic fan base, and as I said, it's what's the biggest draw for Americans who have seen that I said this here a few weeks ago as well. I've seen people literally over here give someone else the shirt off the backs in a pub. You come and join us, that kind of thing, and it's like now else. So, but anyway, Brian, I'd like to thank you for your time and obviously for your service to the club as well, and I also want to wish you well at West Auckland. A lot of history there, as I said before, at the start. If people haven't had an opportunity, get online, have a look at the history of that club as well. The first World Cup winners. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in at home. Are you going to say something there, Brian?
No, I'd just like to reiterate that and thank you for having us.
Oh, no, we definitely appreciate it. So, those people at home, don't forget to tune in next week. We've got 73 FA Cup winner Mickey Horswell as our guest. And finally, I just wanted to mention the 2020-21 season membership registration was opened yesterday. So for those based in the US, please go to sonsoflibertysafc.com and click on the membership page for further details. All right, Brian, thanks very much again. You stay well and stay safe.
You do it.
All right, and be good. And I'll catch up with you down the line somewhere soon. All right, take care, man.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye.